Very soft, these seats.
Oh, yeah.
Nojan.
They're going to drag me out of here.
They are?
With one of these, yeah.
Nojan, have you done this before?
Yes. But it's been a long time since it hasn't been on Zoom.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
So this is the first time I've done it with pants on. This is good. So hi, everybody. I'm Nojan Aminosharei. I'm an editor at Men's Health. Hi, nice to meet you. So tonight I'm going to be interviewing Sam for your enjoyment. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to hear a wee reading.
Oh, we are?
Yes.
Yes, okay. From this book, What I Wrote.
Yes, I think you wrote it.
Well,
very handsome gentleman on the cover wrote it. I don't know.
Yeah, who's that guy? I'm going to read to you. They've marked a spot for me to read. I have no idea what's going to be coming. You can read it. I tell you what. Well, you've all got your copies. Oh, why am I bothering?
They love books, I think, is what they're out here. They're really very well-read crowd.
If you all turn to page 44. This is gonna take all night. So, Nojan, listen to me. Yeah, you can give me a little help. If I lose my way. So this is day 2 of the hike. And I started to write. At the break of day, I surface to the sound of low-flying waterfowl, dripping water. I take a second to register that I'm in a tent and not facing a home with some kind of awful plumbing emergency. Then I trace my thoughts back to the moment I decided that walking the West Highland Way in late autumn was a good idea. I mean, it still is a good idea. My first day was an adventure, and even though it proved far tougher than anticipated, I unzip the front of my burgundy and blue cocoon with a sense of optimism and excitement. Good morning. Good morning, I say to the world outside. The loch reaches across the forested shores that rich in autumnal color. Low, ragged clouds drift across the sky like smoke after battle. I stretch and perform, here we go, a deep lunge. My right hip tight and achy. It feels good to work out the tension while admiring such a dramatic view. It isn't raining, at least it isn't right now. The dripping water is coming off the trees behind my pitch. The air is moist and cool, but so fresh that I inhale through my nostrils and close my eyes. I'm just happy to be in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nature, and cut off from the wider world. Time for breakfast, I remind myself, aware that I need to fuel for another long walk ahead of me. Having cursed the weight of my rucksack throughout the previous day, I'm thankful that it contains the means for me to prepare a nice, hot porridge with cinnamon and peanut butter, and even make a fresh coffee using water from a nearby stream, which I boil as the water source runs through the surrounding fields, and God knows what might have fallen in it. I eat my breakfast perched among the roots of a tree on the bank. The ground is soaking wet from so much rain, which looks set to return at any moment. Listening to the birds, I suspect that now is the time for activity before the heavens open up again. So, I set about packing my tent. You still with me? Packing my tent before it pours. With no time to let it properly dry out. It feels heavier now than when it's set up. But I put that to the back of my mind. I wash my pan and cup in the loch, brush my teeth like a very good Boy Scout, and have everything bundled and ready for the day before the first drops pepper the water. Here we go again. I mutter to myself. I'm fired up by the prospect of another day on the West Highland Way. Though, and the rain, it doesn't bother me. It's the damn rucksack. It weighs me down and my spirits. I shrug it off once more, determined not to let it cast a shadow across my day, while my stone pan and cafe press have earned their keep, along with the tent and sleeping bag. I pull out the walking poles. Who thought this was a good idea, I ask, holding one aloft while I quietly curse the helpful guy from the outdoor store. I decide to keep them both in hand while I make my way along the lane and pick up the path once more. There's bound to be a bin, I tell myself, or maybe even a bus stop. I'm thinking about leaving the sticks for a stranger as a random act of kindness when I find myself deploying them as intended. What am I doing? This is good. It takes a moment for me to realize that tapping of the carbon tips on the tarmac has started to accompany my footsteps. It's quite a pleasing rhythm, I find. What's more, the poles ease off some of the weight on my shoulders. That is the second time I've read this out loud. I did do the audiobook, and I have to say, it was such an amazing experience to actually read through it. And you can purchase the audiobook, but I really enjoyed it because there's something really interesting going back over your own words and having to read them out aloud. It was a really fun experience.
Yeah?
Okay. It's only 300 pages.
Yeah. Listen, who among us hasn't been waiting to hear Sam Heughan say good morning? But let's start with the beginning.
Oh, okay,
let's
yes.
Rewind from day 2 to day 0.
Day 0
in the book.
Okay.
So the book is partly about you hiking the West Highland Way.
Right.
Created 1980. So
it was?
that people can,
I didn't know that.
Just 20 years before you and I were born.
Okay. Some.
Just the very.
Yeah.
We're very young. And it was meant to sort of immerse people in the Scottish landscape. And I just wanted to know, tell me why, in such a small and sort of rare respite in your schedule, this is what you chose to do.
Yeah. I think I'm a madman. I wanted to go on an adventure, and I wanted to do something very personal for myself. And initially, I was looking in my schedule, and we were shooting Outlander, and we'd come towards the end of the year, and I suddenly realized I had this gap between press engagements. I think I was even promoting Clanlands, the second book, the Almanac, with Graham, and so I had this sort of short window, and it was really unprepared. I think you'll see in the book, I kind of just thought, you know what, I'm going to go do the West Highland Way. I thought, it's going to be easy, it's fine, it's 100 miles, 96 miles, it'll be fine, and didn't really prepare at all. Cut to, day 1, day 2, drenched, carrying so much stuff, I literally wanted to give up. But it's something on my doorstep. It was a challenge that I've always thought, why don't I just do that? But I guess, these challenges or these walks or anything, it's because it's so close to home, you never think, I'm going to go out and do that.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to come to New York or to go climb a mountain in wherever that was. Yeah.
Do you live around the Adirondacks?
California.
Is that where you're trying to lure him to?
Is that where I'm going next? Yeah. But what's on your doorstep? You always kind of pass it by or never really think about it. So it's something I always wanted to do.
Yeah. So the beginning of the book is frankly littered with people who react with surprise, maybe shock, when you tell them that you're hiking this in late fall.
Yeah.
Because it is a trail that most people hike in the summertime.
Right.
But yet against all advice from God and man, you go forth.
Yeah.
At any point did you think, maybe I'll put a pin in this?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So it was pretty much a year ago, almost to the day. It was the day before, I guess the night before Halloween. There must be a name for that, right? And in the weather, in Scotland right now, we're shooting right now, Outlander at the moment, and we're really struggling because the daylight is just so short, and it's every day obviously getting less. Yeah, I think most people do this hike, you know, in spring and in summer, and so everyone was kind of surprised because there's so few hours. I knew I'd have to get up early and be finished by 4:30. I knew it'd get dark by 5. And on day 2, yeah, definitely. I mean, you'll see in the book, I was going to give up, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at some point in this journey, or perhaps after, you know, I think of you, and the kind of person that I see relayed through the book is a pretty private person, maybe sometimes a guarded person.
Yeah.
What was it about this experience that inspired you to kind of revisit your life in the form of a book in such a public way?
Yeah, I think, no, honestly, I am a very private person. I think, you know, this whole persona, I think, you know, being an actor, certainly Outlander has thrust me, I guess, more into the public image. But, you know, things I don't talk about, things I never knew much about. And actually, the first book I started to write, Clanlands, with my very grumpy companion, Mr. McTavish, we were writing about Scotland and about family heritage and history, and I knew very little. I knew nothing about my family, really. And so it forced me to dig into that. I got a researcher. I talked to my family more about my heritage, my parents and their grandparents, and I just learned a lot more. Yeah, my father left when I was 18 months old, and I never knew him. I didn't reconnect with him until his last days. So for me, it's always been something I've held very close to me and never really revealed. But this just felt like the right waypoint in my life to kind of revisit that and maybe put things to rest as well.
Yeah, yeah. Some nice vertical integration there. The
Thank you very
waypoints
much.
mentioned,
Thank you.
very nice.
Yes. I should be a writer, don't you?
Yeah. And another aspect of it that I found surprising in your journey is that you sort of showcase yourself a little bit as an introvert, who sort of struggles with, you know, being in the public eye. You were drawn to acting because you could take center stage, but as somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, so that makes me wonder, like,
why do this?
Why do this?
What am I doing?
But that it makes me wonder, okay, this makes sense. A guy goes hiking, you know, alone on this really beautiful sort of trail.
Yeah.
But what I find in the book is that you really come alive the most when you find connection in these fellow travelers. There are a couple of people. Graham is one of their names. Lucy's another one of their names. How did you think that you came out of this, you know, a little bit out of your comfort zone, a little bit out of your cocoon as a result?
Yeah, I mean, so I think acting is such a strange career, especially for someone like myself, because look, we're forced to be in the public persona, and you're forced to be gregarious or to reveal a lot of yourself. But I've always felt I like to observe, and I like to be in the wings, in the shadows, to watch other people. And I guess with any form of celebrity or recognition, you lose that anonymity. You can't become a people watcher, and I love to watch people watch. I've been watching you for no, but seriously,
Close the curtains. Close the curtains.
No, it's just something that it's a strange one, and I think as an actor or learning to become an actor, I realized that behind the character, I can explore myself. Ultimately, the darker places, the more interesting, more strange parts of your psyche. But because it's a character, you can kind of hide behind that. I hate being myself, you know, on stage. It was something I found very awkward as a child, and then as a teenager, and then through acting, I found this release, you know, that I could suddenly be someone else, and that's where you dig into those other parts, and you learn about yourself ultimately through another character. So, yeah, I was in the car on the way here today, all the last few days promoting this book, thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? This is ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, it's also, you know, I guess I've got to an age in my life now where I'm thinking, I'm looking back on my career as the memoir, but like how fortunate I am and how all of these points in my life, all these waypoints, all these steps have made me who I am today. And I guess I wanted to maybe set the record straight or put my own narrative out there.
Yeah, yeah. Did you, when you first encounter other travelers, did you bristle at this sort of break in your solitude?
Right.
And how did you sort of react once you kind of got to know them?
Yeah, so I set out on this, this epic adventure of mine, and I was thinking, I'm going to do this on my own. I am, the mountain man. That man there is obviously packed one thing only, and that's the whiskey. But I set out, and I was like, I want to do this. I kind of playing a role, right? Playing the adventurer, and I wanted to be in this solitude, and I was reflecting upon the journey and upon my life on the way. I was recording voice notes. I recorded over 300 of these rambling voice notes, which go from, talking about how the day is, the weather, the experience, to talking to my father, to talking to trees, to talking to mushrooms, to losing my mind. And then suddenly I met people along the way. And at first, the first person I met was Graham, who features in the book. And he was this terrifying-looking Viking of a man, like shaved side of his head, ponytail, big long beard. He looked like he'd been in the military. He had all the gear. He was kind of staring at me on a rock. And the first thing he said to me was, "I saw your movie. It was shit." Or something along those lines. But he basically said he'd saw my SAS movie and thought it was a lot of crap. So things got off really well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye. And you'll find out in the book. But basically, we kept crossing paths a little bit, and I was really struggling. It was the day two, end of day two. Night fell. I was still about 10 miles from my ultimate goal. It was pitch black, and we decided to walk together. And I won't give away too much, but we got through it together, and our paths may have crossed again. And later on in the journey as well, towards the very end, the last day, as I neared Ben Nevis, my ultimate goal, I met someone else, Lucy, who is an incredible character, and she has actually some of her top 10 tips for surviving the West Highland Way are in the book as well.
On that second night, you're really considering just packing it up.
Yeah.
Going home.
Yeah.
And you reach out, as one does, to your support system, to your friends, and they give you some great words of encouragement. And
I didn't text you, did I?
No, I'm not a very encouraging person, and neither are your friends, because their responses were, WTF Sam, and don't be a loser.
Cancelled.
And that's really where the kind of texting in this story stops. But I would love to know throughout the journey, especially at the points where you're struggling, did you reach out again?
Not to that person.
No. And did you get any other encouragement?
Yeah, so I did. So end of day two, and I really was done. I brought everything with me, far too much stuff. I'd packed everything. I'd gone the day before to the outdoor center and bought, those stupid hiking sticks, which are brilliant, by the way.
They were the hero of that excerpt.
They saved my life.
You read, yeah.
Gas stoves and all the gear and boots and extra socks. And I was carrying way too much stuff, and I was dying on this walk, and it was really painful, and I wasn't enjoying myself at all. And so after the day two epic odyssey with Graham, I finally found myself at the Drovers Inn, which is a very old inn that's actually haunted on the side of Loch Lomond. And it used to be where the drovers, they were the people that would drive the cattle from one town to the Highlands, or from the Highlands into Glasgow or Edinburgh to sell the cattle way back in the 17, 1800s. It was this ancient old pub. And I got there and I was like, please give me a room, please. And a typical Scottish welcome, they were like, no. And I begged, and they finally let me stay the night. But yeah, I was honestly lying in the bed there. Everything was drenched, my sleeping bag, all of my spare clothes, my kit. And I was just like, I can't do this. And I was like, if I just go home, just call a taxi or a friend or something, I could just go home, be in bed, and no one will ever know. No one will ever know. So I decided to sleep on it and see how I felt in the morning. And in the morning, I don't know, something in me I just realized, no, actually, what am I doing? Like, I should just approach this challenge in a different way. So I dumped everything and carried on.
Yeah. How would you describe your kind of relationship to the outdoors? Because there's a little dichotomy that you illustrate for us where you love the outdoors and you love exercise, but there are also certain elements of like the wild man life that you don't take to as much. You have a story about how you love fishing, but you don't want to hook any fish.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a very
pathetic,
loving
I
thing
know.
of you.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, how did your relationship with kind of being out in nature kind of grow? What's your draw to it?
Well, I was born and brought up in Dumfries and Galloway in a very rural area in the grounds of a castle. I think there's some pictures there when I'm quite young, and you can see Kenmure Castle, and there's a big Loch Ken, a big lake, and used to go fishing there with my brother and friends of the family, and it kind of traumatized me when I caught a fish, because I'm like, this is great, I've caught a fish. Oh no, I have to kill it. Oh God. And so I would go, and I guess this is maybe the beginning of my acting, where I would go, not put any bait on the hook, and sit for hours, and I was happy playing a fisherman. God, don't have kids like me. Yeah.
And your mother drove you to and from, and all the while, she knew.
I think she kind of knew, because you didn't catch anything? No. Damn, they got off the hook. But no, there were a couple of times I did, but it's something that I don't know why, but anyway, I do love the outdoors. This is sort of in the solitude. There's this. It gives me a thrill. I don't know why. So I used to obviously play outdoors as a child, and I think that definitely maybe that imagination. It's helped my imagination. So I used to pretend I was whatever, the King of Scotland or Robert the Bruce or King Arthur or whatever, and that would be my escapism whilst sitting on the side of a loch with an empty fishing rod.
Yeah. And you were a Cub Scout?
I was.
But you say in the book you were really just in it for the badges.
Oh, always the badges, yeah. You got all the badges, you got to sew them on. Didn't really like the sport aspect. Mm-hmm. Again, I think it's like I love doing things on my own. And when it comes to team sport, I'm not really a team player. So yeah.
What was the best badge? What was the...
There was, obviously you get all your green badges, but there was like an in-between badge, which was like fluorescent yellow. I think it was for like sewing or something. Like knitting or something, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good skill to have.
It's a great skill, yeah.
So the hike is really a framing device here in this book to explore the waypoints in your actual life,
right.
and your career. And one of the things sort of early on that you've already talked about was the fact that your father had left when you were 18 months old. And that story, as we see a glimpse of it throughout, has a lot of hubris. Not hubris, a pathos to it. It has a lot of hubris. It was a lot of hubris for me to try and use the word pathos, and I fucked it up.
Harsh.
But
that'd be a great quote on the book, wouldn't it? A lot of hubris.
But the thing that I want to talk to you about was your mother, because your mother is, first of all, a fantastic woman, great lady.
Thank you.
Based on what's in this book. She's a single mom. You talk about how she really built a life for you where you didn't feel like you were wanting. And when another child asks you where your dad is, it's not a hurtful question. It's just like, I don't know.
Right.
And it wasn't a big deal for you. But one thing in particular that struck me is that she also seemed to be a creative soul.
Yeah.
And that she was able to kind of revisit and embrace as you were growing older. How much of that did you get from her directly?
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we grow up, we kind of don't want to be our parents, right? And we're like anything to be like them. And then you start to see, you do start to have their characteristics. And not only that, I don't know, it's interesting. So I didn't meet my father from my memory until I was in my mid-late 20s. And he appeared, and I think it's in the book, and I was doing a play at the time. And the night before one of the nights, I just got this message, and he's like, I want to meet you before the play. And I didn't really know how to feel about this, but I was like, okay. And this man appeared, and I had no real idea what he would look like, and I was kind of also trying to stay in the world where I was about to go on stage. I was trying to sort of, very compartmentalize everything. And we went for a walk. We were in Stirling, actually, the university, which is a very beautiful place. And they gave me a doctorate as well. So. But no, and we were walking together, and I thought, this man, I don't know who this man is. He's a stranger, pretty much, to me. However, as we were walking together, I realized we had exactly the same walk. And I don't know how to describe my walk. It's a bit goofy. I think I've got big feet. It's a bit like, I don't know, like this. And I just realized that we just had the same gait, the same walk, the same movement pattern. And it's very odd that, that he's had zero bearing, but I guess even that genetic thing is similar. But I also grew up thinking I never want to be like my father. I never want to have a family or leave like he left me or to be this kind of man. But actually, in a way, I guess I'm putting it to bed because he's made me who I am. Even the absence of him has made me who I am. And I feel very fortunate. And I guess because of my mother, she brought us up and looked after us and eventually sent me to a Steiner school, which is, I think you guys call it Waldorf here, which is a very creative school. And at the time, I went because there were some pretty girls in the class, and it looked like I could get away with doing very little work. But it was an incredible place, and it really instilled in me that creativity. And I think a lot of my mom's creativity is definitely rubbed off.
Yeah. You also mentioned a brother who is really the outdoorsman.
Yeah.
The way you frame him. Has he hiked the West?
Has he hiked the West Highland Way? Has he?
Has he?
No, he hasn't. Yeah.
Well.
No, so, I guess, I'm the one who's playing the character of the outdoorsman, and he is the one. He works for a mountain biking company. He's always outdoors all the time, hiking, cycling, and I'm doing it pretending to be that guy. So yeah, he's the practical one.
You also talk about and trace your professional career, and me being a very envious person, I really enjoyed the chapters where you're struggling.
Oh, thank you.
So, you write about wanting to go to a prestigious acting program, being rejected your first time, and going back, and sort of getting some experience figuring out your technique and coming back and going on from there. What is it about this field that makes so many people, as you describe here, really accept that rejection and keep going forward, right? Because there's so much rejection in
right.
acting.
Yeah.
So. And from the very beginning, you had the mindset of just like, well, no, I'm going to keep trying. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I guess firstly, I feel very fortunate that after a period of time, I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know I wanted to be an actor. I sort of don't really like those people that are a bit pretentious. And they're like, I've always wanted to be an actor. And you're like, oh. Bastard. I didn't know, but I knew I was interested. And I worked backstage as a stage manager or in the crew, like these wonderful people here. And I did a time on the Edinburgh Festival. And I quickly discovered that I really wasn't cut out for being a practical stage manager because one of the days I was moving some big pieces of scenery, like kind of they have here. I don't even know what they're called. I'm an actor. Who knows what they're called? No, those are flats. But anyway, we're moving one. I was so busy watching the actors on stage warming up and doing stuff that I just was like, okay, dropped this thing. And it fell on the poor stage manager's hand, and he went to hospital, and he got 7 stitches down his hand. Couldn't work again. So
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
For insurance purposes.
Insurance purposes, yes, of course. He was fine. Yes. I realized, there was something about the magic of theatre and something in that, and that, I guess, galvanized me to then apply for drama school. But the determination to sort of keep going in for auditions and failing and keep going, I don't know what that drive comes from. Probably just stupidity. or determination, I'm not sure. But I just knew that it's something I want to do, and it is hard because I guess we all have our own dreams and goals, and the way can be very difficult. But I guess perseverance is the key. But yeah, it's hard, of course.
Yeah, you have a story in there of going in for an Aquaman audition, and
yes, Aquaman.
And many of you will maybe know the role from the big screen today, but the character in the comic books is blonde, and you talk about being in a room with 3 other blonde,
very blonde, good-looking guys. Yeah,
good-looking guys doing push-ups, getting the pump on before you go see.
Oh yeah.
What is that element like? Because you're not only are you going in and your livelihood is in the hands of somebody else, but you're going into rooms where everybody looks like you because the casting call has been drawing from a pool of people who look like you.
Yeah.
How does one's self esteem weather that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's actually funny. I'm not even sure if I remember saying, I don't even know if I put it in the book, but I remember now, at the time I had this wonderful, rather zany manager, my first time in Los Angeles, and kind of young and naive, and he was like, okay, so we're going to get you into Aquaman, the psyche of Aquaman. So he took me to the beach. I'm from Scotland. I don't know what a beach is. Like, it's not raining, cool, right? And then he's like, Aquaman wouldn't wear shoes. I'm like, okay, cool. So we got some sandals, flip-flops, and I don't know, what do you call them? Tongs? I don't know, whatever. Flip-flops, anyway. And then he had this like flowery shirt on, like Hawaiian shirt, and he made me get in the water, swim, and I'm not a great swimmer. Help! And then got out, didn't anything, covered in salt and everything, and I went straight to the audition. When I took my flip-flops off, and I remember the casting director being like, what? I'm like, yeah, make myself comfortable. And I had to read for this part, and they called me back. But I was like, if I am Aquaman, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna cast me. But I don't know, these are all the kind of weird games that I guess you play with yourself to kind of, maybe if I do this, they'll like me, or maybe what makes me different to the other 100 people that look like me and talk like me and act like me. And I think the thing that I've learned is that what I was trying to do was guess what they wanted to see and trying to fit their idea of what Aquaman is, right? Whereas what I should have been was like myself.
Yeah. In the end, they went with a brunette, so that's a lesson for you right there.
Mr. Momoa.
You also have a story in there about being a cater waiter.
A what, sorry?
A cater waiter.
A cater waiter?
A cater waiter. You were
cater waiter.
Waiting in
That's right, yes. I've cater waitered all over the world.
Yes, all over the world.
Yes.
And you see Richard Mann of Game of Thrones, The Eternals, and you're holding a tray where the guests put their drinks, and he puts his drink, and you have a moment where you're like, I'm going to say hello because I know him, but you don't. But you've seen each other since.
Yeah.
Have you brought it up?
No. Oh, but I will.
Yeah.
No, the situation was I worked for a friend of mine for a long time in London for a catering company, and he basically employed actors because they drink a lot. Because they're very sort of gregarious, outgoing, and tend to be quite good in that industry. And it was great for actors because it means, we could still do auditions, you could still work, you could do a stage play, and if you're a night off, you could go and do a high-end cocktail event. And this particular one was, I think, at the V&A in London, Victoria and Albert Museum. And I remember that night, huge the bones of a blue whale are in the main hall of the V&A. And I remember this huge magnum of champagne I could never afford, at the time. And I'm like, "Hi, you want some champagne?" Watch the cork go up and just miss the skeleton. Oh God, it's okay. And so pouring champagne. And at some point I had a break, and I went towards the back of the V&A, and there was a friend of mine sort of holding a tray, and it's where people could put their drinks, or they went outside and had a cigarette, because people in London smoke cigarettes because they're cool. Well, they think they are. And so I was like chatting and pretending I'm helping, And Richard Madden came up, and I knew him. Ex-girlfriend of mine, used to live in his house. Elspeth, actually, I think there's a picture of her in the book. And so he came up, and I knew him, and I was like, "Richard." And he just didn't see me, put his glass down and walked out to have a cigarette. So I'm just standing holding his drink, like, oh. And then he came back in again, didn't notice me, just took his drink and left. And I don't know, at that moment, it was funny, but also I just felt deeply, ashamed, which is a stupid feeling to have. Yeah. But it made me think, not that I want to be him or I want to be in his situation, but I was just like, okay, so this is where we're at, and that's where he's at with his career. But I guess some point of it made me more determined, but it wasn't like I felt jealousy or anything. It was just more like, I'm not doing what I want to do. And maybe it just gave me an extra kick up the arse.
Yeah. But then, you obviously also get really great opportunities in this industry. Everyone knows you, as a lovelorn leading man in a show we all know, River City, a Scottish soap opera. Early role for you.
Right.
What?
Yes.
You write about this. A brief role for you.
Did I? Good.
Good.
What else is in that book?
Yeah. And it's sort of intermixed with roles that give you some. You're very happy to be able to explore them on stage. And some you're trying to get a regular paycheck, and you have to balance these needs, the creative need and just the economic need. And in those early days, what was sort of a project, a play, a TV show, a movie?
That something? I regretted? Is that what you're...
No, not that you regretted.
Oh.
No, we would never be so negative here at the 90 Seconds for Why.
No, absolutely.
No, but what is one that stood out to you that really felt like this was an oasis in that period of your life where you just got so much out of it?
Yeah.
And you revisit with fondness.
Well, I was very lucky. I did start in the theatre, and I definitely would say that's where I one of my breadwinning. It was definitely my sort of bread and butter. But I have to talk about Alexander the Great from Macedonia. Just because I got this role as young Alexander the Great, and it was a movie at the time that it seemed on paper like a fun idea. It was a kind of, I don't know if you know Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It wasn't that. It was a sort of similar idea, sort of Buffy-esque meets young Alexander the Great from Macedonia. And at the time, they were doing the Oliver Stone Alexander the Great. And I'd actually, I believe, been offered a small part in it. But it was, do I do the small part or go play Alexander? I was like, this is it. This is my chance to play Alexander the Great. And I studied him, and I understood, I read all about him and his amazing horse, Bucephalus, and his love with Patroclus, and all these kind of things, and we got to Egypt, and it really wasn't what I was expecting. And anyway, long story short, I had the most incredible experience with amazing friends who are now some of my best friends I've still got from that. But there's this amazing photo, which I only saw recently. A fan on Twitter found it. I wish, because I would have put it in my book, but they wanted a shot of Alexander on top of his trusty steed Bucephalus riding through, Troy or wherever it is. But we're in Alexandria. No, we were in Cairo, and they wanted a shot of Alexander like this, looking up. So they decided, how do we get me up high, looking like I'm on a horse, they couldn't put me on a horse because I couldn't ride. So ultimately, they decided the best thing to do was to put me on a taxi, on the roof of a taxi. So there's this great picture of me sitting on a roof of a taxi being driven around Cairo in a full suit of armor to the waist. The bottom half is some pajama bottoms. And I'm riding like this, well, riding a taxi, and I'm doing this. Yeah. So anyway, that was a highlight in the Oasis. But yeah, oh dear. No, I think the theatre for me was definitely, those are the parts that really really reward. You know, I think I did The Talented Mr. Ripley, which was I played Dickie Greenleaf. That was an amazing play. Very strange relationship, but and a great movie as well, if you watch the movie, but awesome book. But yeah, I think the plays, and I think Knives and Hens actually was one that I talk about, and there's a picture in there. A really dark character, a sort of very strange play that's all about, about so many themes, but it's about male and female roles, and about this woman that's oppressed by her very dominant, abusive husband. And I got to play this character, and he's terrible. But it was just such a sort of vile part, but kind of interesting to sort of dig into who he was and why he's this way. So that was one. And I guess Outlying Islands, which was like the first big break for me as well.
Yeah, got some fans in the front row there. So, on to the actual show, not River City, Outlander.
Yay!
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
It's so easy. You just get applaud. You just say the name and they applaud. It's
Outlander. Look at that. We could be here all night.
Wow. You know, you talk about you know, being in this role that so many people watch, that so many people love, and how the cloak of invisibility you'd built for yourself in your life had begun to wane, because now people can recognize you on the street. You can't shrink yourself.
I thought you were talking about Harry Potter now.
I mean, we can talk another role that we have hard feelings on. I don't know. Do you think that sort of having that kind of interaction with people who can recognize you, do you think that has, similar to the journey you talk about here, pushed you out of your comfort zone in positive ways that have made you grow personally?
Sorry, was that a question? So,
you have to, you know, now people will recognize you, and you have to be okay with it, and you interact with them, and with most of these interactions, you come away, you having met a pleasant person who, you know, and you've expanded your outlook. Do you think that, like, you know, we all talk about the kind of pressures of, you know, celebrity, as you said, being that lack of privacy, but is there a positive, which is that for somebody like you, it pushes you out of your comfort zone a little bit?
No, great question. I think, I mean, firstly, we started the show 8 years ago. I think almost recently to the day. It was Katrina Balfe's, my co-stars. Katrina Balfe. It was her birthday, I believe, on the day that we shot the sort of key art for season 1, and that was like maybe the day before we started shooting. And that was pretty recently. But we were both very green, and I guess, you know, I had all this experience from theatre and TV roles, so I felt confident in that. I knew who he was, and I knew who the character Jamie was, and I felt Katrina, you know, was coming in. She came in so late. I mean, I think 2 weeks or a week before we started shooting. She was really thrust in the deep end, and I felt, for me, you know, my role was to support her and to look after her and whatever she needed, and literally as an actor, as a friend, but also as the character. And I think that might also be the key to Jamie's character, that he's always there. He's always supporting her, comforting her. Anything she needs, he's there, right? It's a very simple objective to play, right? To always be looking after this person. So yeah, great. But yeah, I think the celebrity, the fame, or whatever you want to call it, it was something very new to both of us. And I think certainly, the first whiff I got of it was social media, was obviously Twitter, or coming to an event like this. We did one, I talk about it, I think, in the book, and it was one of the first times we saw people, and we're like, what are they doing here? Who are these people? And this great anticipation in the books, and it's still here. I mean, you guys are amazing. We really appreciate it, and people want to see the story to end, and I want to see the story, and yeah, it's incredible. And I think that's testament to Diana Gabaldon. She's created this incredible world.
There's a segment that I wanted to ask you about, because you talk about how the show, just due to its genre and its setting, has depictions of nudity, sex, sexual violence, and how you sort of deal with those kinds of themes on set. And you mentioned the idea of an intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
Which is something that we are seeing a lot more in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And usually when somebody is seated next to an actress, this comes up. And I was struck by the fact that you, as an actor, had mentioned this role and how important it is to set. And just for people that maybe aren't familiar with this, can you sort of describe that role and talk about what it brings to a set for all actors and crew members and directors and everything?
Yeah, I mean, look, our show is very intimate, very graphic, and I think 8 years ago the world was a different place. I think the industry was. I think viewers were. I think the Stars platform was built on that, right? I mean, look at Spartacus, you look at them, it's there, right? It was very like, this is what you're paying for. You're paying for the camera not to look away. And that can be really, not confrontational, but it can be really graphic, but also it can be really interesting. We were in a world where we had to show everything. I don't think we would do the same thing today that we did back then. As a young actor who's very green and I didn't really know how to navigate it, I felt it was an awkward situation. And I felt a little bit pressurized, definitely. And certainly at one point I felt that my trust was betrayed, definitely. But that's not on anyone. It's more that's what the expectation was. I signed a contract that absolutely was what it was. But 8 years later, that's the bell. 8 years later,
that's the alarm saying you have to renew your contract.
Yeah, that's my boss calling right now. Get him off stage. But no, the industry has completely changed now, and I think the viewers have changed, and I think also, I'm older and more experienced, and I in this situation now as a producer, that I wanted to help other actors and also younger actors as well. And the thing is, it's not just for the actors; it's also for the crew and for the directors and the producers and everyone, to keep everyone protected. And actually, having an intimacy coordinator has been such a godsend. We have a brilliant woman, Vanessa Kofi. She's come on board. I met her at my old drama school, the Conservatoire, and we started talking, and I realized that this is what we're missing. Myself and Katrina were left a lot of the time to just work out how to navigate the scenes with the directors. But it's a lot to ask. We all have our own hang-ups. We have our own issues, whether that's, I don't know, whatever it is. It's, we're human beings. And I think just having someone there to support you and give you the tools to work through these scenes. And not only that, Vanessa's given us kind of more ways or more ideas to help portray these characters in love and their relationships. So in a sense, we're exploring that relationship even more than we could, because ultimately it was just, myself and Katrina just trying to work it out. Now we have someone who's really helping us explore that. And it's about the language that these two lovers use. So yeah, I think she's a great addition.
That's great. I mean, yeah. Yeah, as I said, I think that we often ask this of women actresses and producers, and it is something that's great to see a man in these environments also step up and encourage, because I think everybody needs to build together a kind of safe space.
Yeah, for sure, it's about safety. And then I think once we all know the playing field and the guidelines, I think we then can have the freedom to explore more. So hopefully, the scenes will probably be even more intense or more evocative, and it's been an amazing experience working with her. Yeah.
And in the spirit of support and collaboration, I'll be reading some of your questions.
Oh God.
Yeah. So let's get.
Oh boy, I'm glad we didn't get to the end of your book as well.
Yeah.
When are you going to publish that?
That's
the real thoughts.
After I die, that gets published.
Oh God,
let me
the
tell
expose.
You. Burns a lot of bridges.
Yeah.
I'm excited, actually, genuinely, to read these because of just peeping at them. Some of these questions are things that granted all the time in the world were ones that I would love to ask as well.
How's the handwriting?
The handwriting is very legible.
Good. Better than mine. Yeah.
Yes, it's very nice. We're not catching like the Zodiac killer tonight. Like this is a mentally sound mind that wrote these cue cards.
The Zodiac doesn't care about this book.
Oh, hey, don't talk yourself out of a sale.
Mr. Zodiac.
So this question comes from Barb via the live stream.
Hey, Barb. Hi, everyone on the live stream. Hello. Hey. Hello.
Hi only to Barb. So Sam, it seems that this journey has been very cathartic for you.
Yes.
So tell us, what's the biggest benefit you took away from your Waypoints journey? At the end of this, when you reflect on it, how did you become a changed man?
Yeah, I mean, wow. Firstly, I guess, the solitary thing, I was like, I want to do this on my own. And really, sharing it not only with people I met along the way, but sharing it with you, putting it in a book, is literally the most public thing I could do. So I guess I'm beginning to realize that, I'm possibly more of a social animal than I thought. I think we all learned that through, the pandemic and how we realized, actually, I kind of miss people. Oh, God. So yeah, but it really is a waypoint. It feels like by putting this all down in a book, it's maybe not the end of a chapter, but it's just putting that there, and then I can move on to something else. And I feel very, very excited for what's coming in the future.
Cool.
Another hike.
This question comes from Vaughn, not from the live stream.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Vaughn.
Seems like Vaughn got themselves here, Barb, but okay.
Wow, shade. Shade across the internet. Yes.
When you wanted to give up, what was it other than those very supportive texts that motivated you to give up?
Yeah, I can tell you right now, it was a bunch of Haribo. You know what Haribo are? That was it. It was Halloween Eve. And no, it was Halloween. No, that was Halloween. That's right. It was Halloween. And I'd arrived at the Drovers, and it's this ancient old pub, and normally covered in cobwebs anyway, has stuffed bears, and all the staff wear kilts, and it's a very interesting place. It's awesome. I love it. But they would also put all these Halloween decorations. As I walked in, there's this skeleton that was like, Happy Halloween. And I'm like, exhausted, hallucinating. And I'm like, what is going on? And they had a bowl of trick or treat for children. And I went to bed that night and ate these Haribo sweets. There are other sweets available. And I think the sugar just, it was a good time.
Yeah. So, it's clear that you've gotten a certain sense of catharsis out of this book, as we discussed. But Lorraine Reed wants to know.
Lorraine.
What do you want your readers to take away from this book? By which I think she means, what have you done for me lately, Sam?
What have I done for you?
But yeah, what do you think a reader reading this, what are the kind of lessons or sort of, what should be percolating in their minds as they're reading?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a number of things, and I think, I guess as an actor, when you create a role, you draw upon various different inputs and sources of your life and your career and whatever. And I think, hopefully, I know there's so much in here that hopefully someone will get something from it. And I guess the point is, firstly, I went on this adventure. It was something that I overlooked for so many years. It's literally on my doorstep. Go out and do it. Yesterday I went on the Staten Island ferry. I mean, who's done that? A few. All right, fair. All right. But it's just here, right? And you're like, when do you ever just do that? And anyway, I've been coming to New York for a long time and never done it. I'm like, God, Staten Island's awesome. Get me back on the ferry. But no, I had a great time. And I guess hopefully it will inspire people to go out and go on their own adventures and maybe also write a book. Like if you get out there, start writing.
Yeah. This one comes from Erica from Rhode Island. Might as well just give him your address.
Should have got the ferry to Long Island, shouldn't
I? And Erica also touches on something that I wanted to ask you. I don't think I'm going to be able to pronounce it. I don't want to start like an international incident here.
Yeah.
The summit at the end of your journey.
Oh yes, Ben Nevis.
Ben Nevis.
Yes.
Okay, Ben Nevis. How did that factor into your travels? I mean, factor in a big way. But how did you, what was that waypoint like?
Yes. So at the end, I've probably mentioned it before. So at the end of the hike. I'm going to say 100 miles. It's 96. I mean, come on. I got lost a couple of times, probably more than 100 miles. You get to Fort William. Now, I don't know if anyone here is from Fort William. I doubt it. Good. Not my favorite place. It has a really interesting history. So Fort William was created by the British way back to control the Highlands. These forts were put all over Scotland, Fort William, Fort Augustus, a bunch of them. The actual name in Gaelic is in Garrison Du, the Black Garrison. It has this very dark history. So the local Highlanders would not like this place. It is charming, it's all right. I'm not putting it down, but it's never been one of my favorite places. But I was so pleased to see Fort William at the end of my hike. However, Fort William sits at the base of Ben Nevis. It's the highest mountain in the UK. It is a beast. It's a behemoth. It's massive. It literally looks like a fist, these knuckles sitting at the side. Fort William here, these long rivers coming down or streams coming down off it. And it only, I believe, gets sunshine or no cloud on the top. Something like, I don't know, like 30 or 50 days a year. The rest of the time it's always covered in cloud. So it was, I believe, around, I don't know, I would guess 16 degrees Celsius, like a temperate day at the base. Up the top, minus 12 Celsius, which is probably like a New York winter's day, right? Snow, ice, freezing cold, and very dangerous. There's a gully called the Gardyloo Gully. Now, Gardyloo, back in the old days, especially in Edinburgh, back in the 1700s, 1800s, was when you were throwing out the contents of the toilet out of the window. And to warn the people below, you'd shout, Gardyloo, and then you'd throw it out. And hopefully everyone's scattered out of the way. Now, the gully of the side of Ben Nevis, no one's throwing their feces out there. No, it's just a very steep ravine that goes down, thousands of feet. And I came very close to it. I couldn't see the fog, the mist. It's a very dangerous place, very beautiful place. And it was a really exciting moment to get to the very top of it and sort of, I guess, finish the journey. Judy, where are you? Come on, it's your birthday. Judy is 78. She's come all the way from Colorado. She was expecting to see someone else. But she asked for one thing, and she would like you all to sing her happy birthday. Happy birthday, Judy. Happy birthday, Judy. She's gone home. Happy birthday, dear Judy. There she is in the middle. Ah, Judy, happy birthday.
Well, thanks everyone for coming to see Judy. It's been a great...
When are we going to read your book, Judy?
A great birthday party.
Right.
And thank you, Sam, for coming to see Judy.
Oh, thank you.
So, guys, I believe we have copies of Waypoints on sale in the lobby. If you haven't grabbed one yet, shame on you, quite frankly. Sure. But you can redeem yourself by going out to the lobby and purchasing a book. For God's sakes, read something for once in your life. Sam, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having all of us and everybody on the live stream, especially Barb. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.